Car accidents cost us much more than time and money. They also take a staggering number of lives. Every year on American roads, nearly 33,000 people die, almost all because of driver error. That's the equivalent of a 747 full of passengers crashing once a week for a year. Self-driving cars could save more than 2/3 of those lives. That's what the nation's top auto regulator told us. It's no wonder the biggest names in the auto industry and high tech are racing to develop driverless cars powered by a form of artificial intelligence. 6 years ago, Google rolled out a prototype that jump-started the competition. Today, Apple and Uber are experimenting too. We wanted to see how far the technology has come, so we hit the road in Silicon Valley, the new Detroit for self-driving cars.
What do you have to do to make the car take over?
I just pull this lever, and now
System is active.
Computer scientist Ralph Hertwig runs autonomous vehicle research for Mercedes-Benz. He punched in a route and took us for a 20-mile drive on city streets and highways in this S500, the company's most advanced self-driving prototype.
So this is like no hands, no feet, cars in charge.
Yeah, the car is in charge.
Right from the start, the car astonished us. As we approached our first intersection, it slowed down and steered itself into the left turn lane.
Traffic light ahead shows green.
It's a German car, so naturally it has a German accent. That was the voice of Hertwig's secretary.
So it just took off by itself when the light turned green, and now it's making this left turn by itself with other traffic around. This is absolutely amazing.
Just 2 minutes into the ride, we entered a freeway on-ramp. If you think a normal merge is nerve-wracking, try it with a driver who's talking with his hands.
I must admit, I find it a little disconcerting that we're driving toward the freeway and you don't have your hands on the wheel.
Shall I put them back on? Would that make you feel more comfortable?
Hertwig gave us a rare opportunity to go on an actual test run near Mercedes' Silicon Valley lab. Almost every major automaker is working on the technology here. Nissan has teamed up with NASA. Auto parts maker Delphi put its system in this Audi. It was the first to drive itself across the country. Back at that merge, don't hold your breath for the car to step on it. This S500 won't break the speed limit.
Are you going to have little old ladies driving up behind you, beeping the horn to get going, get moving?
Some people have remarked that the car itself, in some cases, drives a bit like an old lady. That's fine with us for the time being.
Especially since the car has driven about 20,000 miles without an accident. Mercedes made its name selling the passion for driving on the open road. Now it sees a future in the growing desire to be driven through traffic-jammed streets.
What's fueling this?
People are increasingly asking for this. People probably have become used to live more with computers and interact with computers, and they feel more comfortable doing this. And so all of a sudden we see this interest in, hey, there are certain situations where I don't want to drive. Can your car do it for me?
First, you're amazed. Then you begin to relax. Surprisingly, it took less than 10 minutes to feel comfortable with the car in control.
This is amazing.
But don't get too comfortable.
This is not good.
Those beeps, that's not a sound you want to hear. It means the car senses trouble and needs a helping human hand.
Now the vehicle asked me to take over.
At this intersection, that silver car got too close.
This is, for example, I rather took over. It would have managed, but I really was.
That guy was getting into our lane there.
Yeah.
It only happened a few times while we were driving around. Hertwig says teaching the car to handle encounters like that silver car on chaotic city streets with impulsive human drivers will keep his engineers busy for the next decade.
I'm not an engineer, but how do you figure things like that out?
The important thing about an autonomous vehicle is it has to have a very good sense of its environment. A vehicle cannot react to something it does not see. So we have to be very careful that we see everything that happens around us.
The car sees with an array of cameras and radar sensors designed into the body, constantly scanning up to 600 feet in all directions.
We can actually detect more quickly that something is happening that may cause an accident than the human driver can.
So these cars would actually be safer, you're saying, than a human driver?
That's what we aim for.
That's what Google is driving for, too. Its autonomous cars rely on roof-mounted laser sensors to see the road. In the last 6 years, its fleet has driven more than 1 million miles.
We're getting to a place where we're comparable to human driving today.
Robotics scientist Chris Urmson is the director of Google's self-driving car project. He invited us inside his Silicon Valley garage, where the autonomous future is taking shape.
Google's a tech company, not a car maker.
Absolutely. But the heart of what makes the technology work is the algorithms and the software. And that's one of the things that we are really quite good at.
There are so many variables, so many different scenarios. How is it possible to put all of that knowledge into a car?
And that's really the trick, right? And that's what makes this hard, is you can't just kind of go through and enumerate, you know, the 1,000 different scenarios that might encounter, because it's not 1,000. There's an infinite number of them, right? And so the trick is to develop these algorithms that can generalize.
By generalize, he means think. And this is how it works. The algorithms are trained to recognize other cars, pedestrians, cyclists, and animals from their movements, size, and shape. Each car's daily driving experience is analyzed, uploaded, and shared. The cars can then make predictions and choices based on the collective knowledge of the fleet. Look in the lower left corner as one of Urmson's cars encounters a pickup truck that stops to parallel park.
Now, how does the computer know that it's someone intending to back into a parking space and not someone who's just stopped in the street?
Our cars have seen thousands and thousands of vehicles, and they get a feeling, really for what the behavior of those vehicles are going to be.
Really?
So it's seen lots of cars backing up, and so it understands if there's a space here and a car stops just in front of it, that means it's going to probably back into that spot.
My smartphone has computer glitches. My computer has glitches. How do you get people to trust that this computer on wheels is not going to have a glitch?
We're all used to our bits of home computing doing funny things, right? And what you have to remember is they're engineered and designed very differently. The way we develop the software, the way we develop the hardware, the way we think about redundancy, the way we think about the situations it has to deal with on the road is completely different.
Right now, the technology can't handle snow. Google's cars can't operate in heavy rain. The Mercedes S500 can't decipher hand gestures from traffic cops or pedestrians. 4 million miles of roads in the U.S. must be mapped in ultra-high-definition detail. The automakers call these solvable problems. In the meantime, the car industry plans to automate the driving experience feature by feature, what some are calling revolution by evolution.
Infiniti QX60.
The revolution is already being televised in ads.
Backup collision intervention, which can brake even before you do.
In showrooms today, you can buy features to automatically keep you in your lane, help you park, drive you in stop-and-go traffic, and coming soon, hands-free highway driving. Tesla is making it available this month. GM plans to offer it in a 2017 Cadillac.
We are at probably the largest transformative moment in the history of the automobile.
Mark Rosekind is head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. He is optimistic, but also realistic about this new technology.
This is really different than just thinking about the engine parts and the tires. Now we're talking about cars are computers. So issues related to cybersecurity and privacy are just as big an issue as the defect in the manufacturing process.
Someone can hack your computer and steal your money, but someone can hack your car and you can die.
People have to trust these vehicles. If they read or suspect in any way that they literally could be one virus away from a crash occurring, they're not going to get in that car. They're not going to buy it. They're not going to let it drive them. That whole future evaporates.
Rosekind also worries about a future in which drivers place too much trust in the cars.
Think about how some of this is being sold. Oh, you can take a nap, you can read the paper. What would you do if you had to take over in a certain emergency situation? Nobody has that future totally nailed yet.
Mercedes and other major car makers say humans will always have a role in driving. But Chris Urmson of Google says it's dangerous to require humans to snap to attention and take control at a moment's notice. So the company stopped developing cars that put humans on call. Now it's testing 25 fully autonomous electric prototypes custom built for the job.
So I would punch in where I wanted to go, and it would just take off and go there.
And to take off, you press the little go button under here, pull away from the curb, take you where you wanted.
For safety, the cars max out at 25 miles per hour. They don't need steering wheels or pedals, but they have them to comply with current California law.
The goal of this is to improve the remote assistance link.
Jamie Wado oversees the engineering. She used to work at NASA on autonomous vehicles of a different sort, the Mars rovers.
Doing self-driving cars here on Earth is actually more challenging in a lot of ways.
More difficult than driving across the surface of Mars.
I think so. Humans are so unpredictable, and so having to try to have a car who can outpredict an unpredictable human is amazing and really, really hard.
Google's cars have been in 9 minor accidents in self-driving mode. All, the company says, the fault of humans driving in the other cars. Google and Mercedes told us if their technology is at fault once it becomes commercially available, they'll accept responsibility and liability. But all involved expect fewer crashes as the technology evolves. For now, it's accelerating to the near future and beyond. This is Mercedes' vision for the year 2030, the FO15.
So we have an app.
You can summon it with your phone.
The car will start and come to you.
German engineer Peter Lehmann took us for a test drive at an old naval base on San Francisco Bay. The car's radical design was shaped by expectations of life in the future.
You turn your back to the steering wheel.
Mercedes is planning for overcrowded cities, perpetual gridlock, and an autonomous car to drive the stress away.
Now you can relax, or you can look a movie, so you have really gained time.
I feel like I'm driving into the future right now.
Yes.
A future Google's Chris Urmson says is coming, and coming fast.
So how long before that day?
So I talk about this as I have 2 children, 11 and 9-year-old, and the 11-year-old is going to be able to get a driver's license in about 4.5 years, and my mission is to make sure that doesn't happen.
You want him to have a driverless car?
I want him to have a driverless car.
The price of oil is up, gas-guzzling cars are out, and a race for a fuel-free, practical electric car is on. It includes the usual suspects, Detroit, Japan, Germany. But here's a surprise. A newcomer with no experience at building cars has entered the race, Silicon Valley. The jury is still out on whether electric cars can ever really be practical. But the computer geeks in California are betting that their inventiveness can beat out Detroit's cumbersome bureaucracy in producing a viable electric. One of the reasons electric cars have never taken off has been battery technology. A few years ago, someone wondered, why not use the batteries they put in laptop computers, called lithium-ion batteries? That's when the environmentally conscious high-tech industry in California jumped in. This is the first all-electric sports car, the Roadster, made by Tesla Motors, a small startup in Northern California.
Yeah, you can floor it. No problem. It'll be fine.
All right, here I go. You ready? The chairman of Tesla, Elon Musk, says the Roadster can accelerate from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. It's propelled by more than 6,000 finger-sized laptop batteries and not a single drop of oil. Silicon Valley's Elon Musk made his fortune by inventing PayPal, the online banking service. He launched Tesla 5 years ago with no experience at all in the car business. Now he has over 1,000 orders for the Roadster from people like George Clooney and Governor Schwarzenegger. They can afford it. This beautiful Roadster costs a fortune.
$109,000.
$109,000.
It's a deal.
It's a deal.
And our car is twice the efficiency of a Prius. So a Prius is a gas-guzzling hog by comparison with our cars.
He says the Roadster can go over 200 miles before you have to plug it in to any ordinary wall outlet. It can take anywhere from 4 to 30 hours for a full charge.
It's very easy. It's just like plugging in a hairdryer. It's super simple. Yeah?
Even a girl could do it, is that what you're trying to say?
Even a girl.
From the beginning, Musk wanted to prove that innovative and nimble Silicon Valley could build a better green car than lumbering, bureaucratic Detroit.
Outside of Detroit, everybody thinks Detroit is dumb.
Well, they think you're hidebound.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Bob Lutz, vice chairman of General Motors, is the man in charge of developing their new products. And he says he owes Tesla and its Roadster a debt of gratitude.
If a small Silicon Valley startup believes that they can do a commercially viable electric car, are we going to sit here as General Motors and say, well, a guy in California can do it, but we can't? Now, that didn't sound very good.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so the race was on, with Lutz overseeing the research and development of the Chevy Volt, which is a 4-door family electric.
So you see that it's got twin screens.
The Volt is not purely electric. It's called a plug-in hybrid. It'll drive on battery power alone for 40 miles. Go beyond that, and a small gasoline engine kicks in to recharge the battery while you keep driving.
78% of trips in the United States are under 40 miles a day. If all those people had Volts, you would have 78% of Americans basically never using another drop of gasoline.
Everything about the Volt, he says, works like a conventional car, except there's no noise.
There's one thing we can do. For people who miss the sound of the engines, we sell them a CD with various engine sounds. So you'd be able to pick Ferrari V12 or, Le Mans Corvette.
A car that can go up to 40 miles before it uses any gas at all.
GM is already touting the car in TV ads, even though they don't yet have a working prototype.
The real trick on the car is software. The car needs to know where home plate is. So if you, for some reason, have gone from work instead of directly home, you've gone shopping, and you're starting to run out of battery on the way home, the computer will tell the gas engine, look, he's 5 miles from home, only run for 3 minutes because he only needs enough to get home.
What about safety? In 2006, Dell was forced to issue the biggest recall in electronics history when its lithium-ion batteries burst into flames. Lutz says GM has solved that problem with its batteries, but they need a lot more testing to check how durable and reliable they are in extreme weather and real road conditions. Still, Lutz insists the Volts will be in dealerships in 2010. We've spoken to people who say, Lutz is crazy. They cannot do this by then. It's just not going to happen.
Right. We'll see. Somebody's going to have egg on their face.
It was GM with egg on its face in the late 90s for killing off its first electric cars, the EV1s, and then crushing them into scrap metal, which fueled theories that GM had conspired with the oil industry to get rid of the electric car.
I think even our lawyers now would admit that perhaps crushing them was not the smartest thing in the world to do. I get emails that say, I hope you enjoy the billions that you got from the oil companies, you swine.
It's that history and his record of promoting SUVs and the Hummer that make people wonder about Lutz's new role in developing GM's new green cars. So let's talk about your own personal carbon footprint.
Yes.
How many helicopters do you own?
I have one and my wife has one. She's a
His and her
commercial
helicopters.
pilot. Yeah.
How many jets do you have?
I have 2.
Now, you have a terrible reputation with environmentalists, as you well know.
No, actually, some of them kind of like me, but go ahead anyway.
Well, they don't like what you said about global warming.
Right.
Do you want to repeat what you said about global warming?
Of course not, because this is a family network.
You don't
correct.
think there's global warming? Is that really true?
I'm not going to get into this because
you got into so much trouble when you said it the first time.
That could be right, yeah.
What Lutz said in January is man-made global warming is a crock of shit. So he's no environmentalist. But he is a realist. Gone are the gas guzzlers. To save GM, he knows he has to come up with gas-efficient cars. But Detroit is broke, while in California, things are buzzing. The venture capitalists who funded the information superhighway are now pouring money into the actual highway, backing at least 30 small startup companies. Ray Lane is a senior partner at Kleiner Perkins, the venture capital firm that helped start Google and Amazon. Now he's investing in 3 electric car startups.
When I first started talking about the possibility of investing in automobiles, my partners thought I was crazy. We're not out of the woods yet. I haven't proven I'm not crazy yet.
One of his startups is Fisker Motors that's making the Karma, a 4-door plug-in hybrid like the Volt, with some added gee-whiz features. This is a solar roof.
It's a solar roof. So this will generate electricity. It will not generate enough to drive the battery, though, like the engine does. Yeah. It will drive enough electricity to maybe cool the car while it's in the parking lot.
Some of the other startups in California are less conventional, like this all-electric. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's an Aptera due out this Christmas. But one issue with all these cars is that much of the electricity to power them would come from burning coal, which produces greenhouse gases. So they're not necessarily the perfect green solution. 4 years ago, we had the hydrogen car. 3 years ago, there was ethanol. Mm-hmm. And now it's the electric car.
Right.
In each case, there were such problems with them that everybody's focus moved on to the next thing. Isn't that going to happen again with these electric cars?
It could. I mean, that is what Silicon Valley is all about. A good entrepreneur that fails, we will pick that person up, fund them again to do something new if it's a good idea.
Is there any thinking with these 30 little Henry Fords that we've got to crush Detroit?
Some. I mean, there was a company that's pretty well known, Tesla, for a long time believed that what would be their advantage is they had no car people, no Detroit people. We're going to build a vehicle company exactly like we build a computer company. So it's when you have your car repaired, it's going to be going into your Apple store. We'll give you a latte, you watch your car being repaired. These are real statements. So they've certainly found out you cannot build a car company without car people.
There's sort of this feeling of, especially in Silicon Valley, that people in the automobile business aren't very smart. And then they get into it and they find out, holy mackerel, look at all this government regulation, look at what everything costs. And then once they're into it, they figure out, hey, this isn't an easy business after all. And I think that's about the point where Tesla is right now.
But these startups out in California don't have the union problems, the healthcare costs, the labor issues. These startups don't have boardrooms, they don't have nervous shareholders.
Yeah, but they have no experience in the car business.
And you think that outweighs all of this?
Absolutely, sure.
It is true that Tesla is now hiring lots of people with Detroit on their resumes. Their next project is development of a 4-door family sedan that'll compete with the Chevy Volt. Did you used to think this was going to be easier than it was?
Yes, I probably thought it would be a little easier.
How much more has the project cost than you thought it was going to cost so far? Twice as much?
Probably,
3 times as much?
No, probably twice as much, I think, ish, thereabouts.
How much did you put into this company?
Oh man, about $55 million.
$55 million of your own money.
Yeah, it's a little more than I expected.
No one's figured out how to make an electric car cheap. Tesla plans to sell its 4-door sedan for $60,000. Lutz at GM wants the Volt to be more of an everyman car. How much is it going to cost? me, the consumer.
I started out very optimistically and said, okay, well, I think we can sell this thing for $20,000. And that turned out to have been like one of those, I wish I hadn't said that. And then we started hoping for well below 30. And now we're trying to keep it south of 40.
$40,000 is not an everyman car by any stretch.
That's true.
To get buyers, GM will have to sell the car at a loss. Bad news for a company already burning $1 billion in cash every month.
I'll tell you what, we can afford a tiny little loss on a car, but we can't afford a $20,000 loss per car. That's just not on.
That's because GM is in financial straits. Bob Lutz is trying not only to produce a moneymaker, but also prove with the Chevy Volt that his company and his town are still the address for innovative cars. So a lot about General Motors' reputation and image is riding on this.
That is probably an understatement.
And so basically, in your mind, it has to succeed.
Of course it does. For what it's worth, I stake my reputation on it.
There is perhaps nothing more emblematic of the American century than the automobile. Assembly lines rolled out millions of Fords, Chryslers, Chevys and Buicks and made Motor City, Detroit, Michigan, the capital of the global car industry. But in the race to dominate the auto industry of the 21st century, it is China vying for the pole position. It's Chinese automakers building the smart cars of tomorrow, and the energy fueling them is electric. Today, US automakers are caught between a tariff-fueled trade war and threats of cuts to electric car subsidies by the Trump administration. At the same time, Beijing is trying to win the race by ensuring the electric vehicles of the future are made in China.
This year, China will build 1 million electric vehicles. That's nice scale. That's half of the electric vehicles in the world.
Michael Dunn grew up in Detroit, America's Motor City. Then, as a graduate student seeking adventure in the late 1980s, he went to Chongqing in western China.
Everyone was poor, wearing grays and blues, riding bicycles. There were no cars.
No cars?
No cars at all.
Dunn has watched China evolve from an isolated socialist state to a controlled capitalist powerhouse, and from a nation of bike riders to car drivers. He's been working as an auto industry consultant in Asia for 30 years, including a stint as a top executive at General Motors. And now Dunn is witnessing the Chinese government literally electrify its burgeoning auto sector. What is the Chinese government doing to encourage people to buy electric vehicles?
Lots. Without government regulation, there would be no electric car industry or market here.
Well, it's completely created by the government?
Totally created by the government. So you get up to $10,000 in rebates when you buy an electric car in several cities.
What else does the government do?
In the city of Shanghai, for example, typically you have to pay $12,000, $13,000 to buy a license for the ability to buy a car. They waive that.
They're free if you buy an electric vehicle?
Yes.
The result, an explosion of electric car makers. 100 or so, eagerly feeding at the government trough. You can buy a Great Wall, or you can build your dreams, a car maker in which American billionaire Warren Buffett was an early investor. The latest entrant to the crowded Chinese auto market is NIO.
How are you, Holly?
Hi, William.
NIO's founder is William Li.
It's nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you.
A 44-year-old billionaire entrepreneur who we met last year in Beijing. NIO is China's only all-electric luxury car brand.
It's sort of similar to a Tesla.
And the similarity to a Tesla is no coincidence. NIO's ES8 is competing with American-made Tesla for wealthy, status-conscious Chinese. Their conspicuous consumption has made China one of the biggest markets for luxury goods in the world. With no import costs at $60,000, the Neo is about half the price of a Tesla.
I heard that you were the one who called this car the Tesla killer.
好吧，好吧。
And maybe it was you.
Maybe.
It doesn't look like a killer. You should take it for a spin.
Yeah.
What's the acceleration like on this thing?
Lee claims his car goes from 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds.
650 horsepower.
And about 220 miles on a full charge. Plus, the car has a built-in personal assistant called Nomi.
Can we try Nomi?
Yeah, sure.
Who follows voice commands, as long as you speak Chinese.
把音乐关掉好吗？
怎么了？搞定了。Wow, cool.
She understands
Yeah,
me.
sure.
Nomi is an avatar of artificial intelligence. She'll entertain you with a music playlist, adjust the temperature,
来一张自拍吧。
or snap a selfie on command.
You can see.
好的，拍照，Nomi。
Yeah. Okay.
This is Chinese innovation, a great leap forward from China's communist past.
What would Chairman Mao make of a capitalist like you?
好吧。
Lee told us Chairman Mao would have said, "You're doing a good job."
You really? He was a communist.
Okay.
He hated capitalists like you.
我们是在把
We're trying to make a better world, Lee said. In Chinese, the slogan of Lee's car company is Blue Sky Coming. That dovetails nicely with one of the reasons the Chinese government is pushing electric vehicles, as a way to reduce the country's choking air pollution.
You've been called the Elon Musk of China. Is that fair?
I'm younger than him. Yes.
I've been speaking to quite a lot of Chinese people since I got here, and they say they really like Teslas.
Yeah.
How are you going to compete with that?
就像模特 T 台上
Lee said it's like the clothes fashion models wear on the catwalk.
It's not same.
The clothes may be beautiful, he explained,
T 台上的衣服
but you can't wear them every day.
非常漂亮。
So the Tesla is the supermodel, and you're the girl next door.
Yeah.
Auto analyst Michael Dunn says the first challenge for NIO is to overcome China's reputation for building cheap, low-quality cars.
Are they trying to knock Tesla out of China and take on Tesla perhaps globally?
There's plenty of market here to allow Tesla to play and NIO to play. What NIO needs to do is establish credibility with consumers and say, we're legit. We're a really good car.
In September, NIO became the first Chinese all-electric car company to debut on the New York Stock Exchange. The splashy initial public offering raised $1 billion.
This is your race car.
A NIO team has competed on the Formula E circuit for 2 seasons, including this race in Brooklyn, New York. Proof that electric cars are catching up with gas engines in power and speed. But NIOs are really designed for tech-savvy Chinese owners who link to their cars with a mobile app. Tap on a screen for repairs or maintenance. Tap to order a mobile charging van for a quick power boost. Tap again to visit a swap station, where a depleted battery can be replaced in 3 minutes by robot mechanics. It's the kind of futuristic scene that William Lee could only dream of as a child.
Did anyone in your village have a car?
No.
Ironically, the founder of this high-tech electric car company grew up in a farming village with no electricity.
So you learned about business,
Yeah.
raising cows with your
Yes.
grandfather.
Yes, yes.
What did you learn?
我觉得
Lee explained that when you're doing business, honesty is very important.
This is all NIO.
Lee has founded or backed about 40 startups, including an online auto marketplace and a bike-sharing company. His estimated net worth is $1.2 billion, and Lee has ploughed $150 million of his own money into NIO.
Americans have been quite slow to adopt electric cars. Is it different here in China?
中国现在肯定
It will definitely be fast, Lee told us, because the Chinese government is pushing electric cars.
There are lots of Chinese companies as well.
In Shanghai, China has built the largest EV database in the world.
This is a map of all the electric cars in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Ding Xiaohua is the deputy manager of the Shanghai Electric Vehicle Data Center, which collects millions of bits of information every day on nearly 200,000 electric cars on this city's streets.
So let's find a Tesla.
This is only Tesla brands.
These are all Teslas?
Yeah, all Teslas.
Inside every electric vehicle in the city is a black box, automatically transmitting data to the center every 30 seconds.
For example, the speeds, the mileage, the battery temperature.
And does that help the government plan for the future?
Yes. Public charging points, how many public charging points, and where it is best place for the public charger.
There is nothing like this in the US or anywhere else.
Because it's real time.
China is paving the way for the electric cars of the 21st century.
And the blue ones are
yes,
in
it's
use.
moving.
Most of the country's 100 or so EV startups will be killed off by the competition. But William Lee thinks NIO will survive and points out his company met its modest goal of delivering 10,000 cars last year.
Why are the numbers so small at the moment?
There are always problems and delays when a company ramps up production of something new, Lee told us. And NIO's cars, he added, are all made to order. We visited NIO's production line, where the made-to-order cars are assembled in a spotless, automated, high-tech factory dominated by a core of whirring robots. And with China's massive manufacturing machine behind it, NIO may be able to scale up faster than its foreign competitors. At the company's research and development outpost in San Jose, California,
You envision a day.
Padma Warrior, NIO's CEO in the United States until last December, predicted its cars will someday be on American roads. But she was cagey about when.
What will it mean to American consumers and American drivers, you hope?
So I would hope consumers will look at it as a future.
A Chinese future?
A China-driven future.
NIO is one of 9 Chinese electric vehicle or EV companies to set up shop on the West Coast, where they can entice the world's best engineers, programmers and software developers. NIO has hired more than 600 of them.
We have people here that have worked at Google, at Apple, at Cisco, at Tesla, you name it.
I think some people might see that as the transfer of American technology to a Chinese company.
I don't see it that way. I think I see it more as where is the biggest market for EVs, right? And where is the biggest problem with respect to pollution? Clearly, that's China. And so I look at it as taking the best of the talent pool that's available and changing the world for the better.
This year, the Chinese government will require all global automakers in the country to make 10% of their vehicles electric. American automakers are already investing billions in electric vehicle technology. But unlike Chinese companies, they don't have the government trying to fix the race. Auto industry consultant Michael Dunn warns China is determined to bend the electric car industry in its favour.
The size of the market alone makes China an irresistible place to be for any global automaker. If you're not in China, you're not playing. So China says, how badly do you need our market? All right, very good. You're welcome to sell as many cars as you want, provided that you also abide by our new rules with regards to electric vehicles.
Has America already ceded leadership in this industry?
Not too late. It's so early. China's been making electric vehicles 3 years, 4 years.
When will it be too late?
If we wait to 2025, China will be making 5 million a year, and if we're still making 500,000, now all of the technology and design engineering is concentrated in China. How do you catch up with that?
One of the most encouraging signs in the U.S. economy over the past year has been the resuscitation of the American automobile industry from a near-death experience. And in many ways, the most dramatic recovery has been Chrysler's. 3 years ago, the company was headed for the junkyard crusher, leaking cash and about to be scrapped, unloved and unwanted. But last year, Chrysler turned a $183 million profit and would have made a lot more if it hadn't decided to repay its $6 billion federal bailout 6 years ahead of schedule. Much of the credit goes to U.S. taxpayers and to Chrysler workers who accepted wage and benefit cuts. But none of it would have happened without the efforts of a 59-year-old Italian-born and Canadian-raised auto executive named Sergio Marchionne, who engineered a last-minute partnership with Fiat and an American-style success story. With his gray stubble, longish hair, relaxed demeanor, and trademark black sweaters, Sergio Marchionne looks more like a film director than an auto executive, but he is now the industry's biggest star.
Sergio Marchionne.
The CEO of Fiat had already rescued that company from financial ruin, and in Chrysler, Marchionne saw at least one similarity. Both companies had been through hell.
I remember when I came here in 2009, there's nothing worse for a leader than to see fear in people's faces. It's been a long, rocky road, but fear is gone.
What were they afraid of?
Of not being here, right? It's that simple. I mean, this was really a question of existence. There's nothing worse in life than to sit there and be the victim of a process that's outside your control.
And that was exactly the situation at Chrysler in early 2009, when Marchionne began negotiating with the federal government over a controlled bankruptcy of Chrysler that would allow Fiat to take over the failing auto company. It was the last hope for Chrysler and its 54,000 employees.
Well, there wasn't a CEO in the world from the car side that would have touched this with a 10-foot pole.
It gave you a little leverage.
Give me some leverage and a whole pile of downside risk. You can't, for you to be the only guy at the bar, there's going to be a reason, right?
Did you think it was a long shot?
All these things are long shots. All of them. If it was that easy, then everybody would do it.
If Sergio had not appeared, I think it's very likely Chrysler would have been allowed to liquidate.
Steve Ratner, who was head of the presidential task force on the auto industry, sat across from Marchionne at the bargaining table during the height of the economic crisis. Ratner believes that Chrysler's demise could have cost 300,000 American jobs up and down the industrial supply chain. Was he a tough negotiator?
Brutally tough, yeah. But that's part of why he's successful.
In the end, Marchionne and Fiat got a 20% stake in the brand new, slimmed-down, debt-free Chrysler, plus a $6 billion high-interest loan from the U.S. Treasury, just for taking the auto company off the government's hands and running it. He used the $6 billion to modernize Chrysler plants with state-of-the-art equipment to improve quality, upgraded 16 existing models in just 18 months, and began integrating Chrysler and Fiat's operations. Obviously, you saw something in Chrysler that you thought would fit well with Fiat.
Yeah, from a product standpoint, they were the other half of the coin. When you put the two together, we were going to come up with a product portfolio that was absolutely complete.
Chrysler's best assets were its Jeeps, minivans, and light trucks. Fiat's expertise was in small car technology and fuel-efficient engines, the very thing that Chrysler lacked. And next month, the first product of that collaboration will begin rolling off the assembly line in Belvidere, Illinois.
This car didn't even exist on paper in June of 2009.
It's the Dodge Dart, the first new compact sedan that Chrysler has produced in more than a decade. It's a slightly longer and wider version of the Alfa Romeo Giulietta, re-engineered and built in the USA. Base price just under $16,000 with 40 miles to the gallon.
How important is this car to Chrysler?
If you're a serious car maker and you can't make it into the segment, you're doomed.
It's got a little Italian flair.
Yeah, just enough to make it interesting, and it avoids all the pitfalls of being Italian, yeah?
Mechanically, it's good.
Mechanically, it's outstanding.
Under Marchioni, the quality of both Fiat's and Chrysler products have improved dramatically, according to Consumer Reports. Now Marchioni needs to convince the public.
We got it. We fixed it. This car has nothing to apologize to for anything.
The darts produced at the Belvedere plant are not just for U.S. consumption. Marchioni plans to begin exporting them to more than 60 countries. When he took over Chrysler in 2009, this plant had 200 workers. By the end of the summer, there will be 4,500.
What do you think of American workers?
I think the world of American workers. What happened here at Chrysler would have been impossible without the commitment that they've shown. Absolutely impossible. When I was looking at this deal back in 2009, I snuck into Jefferson, our plant that now makes the Grand Cherokee. And I'll tell you, if I had any reservations about doing this deal, it was after I saw the state of that plant. And the people that fixed that plant are the guys on the shop floor.
Like most of Detroit's automakers, Chrysler was saddled with a stifling bureaucracy, which Marchioni quickly culled. To change the management structure, he combed through the company and found 26 young leaders who would report directly to him.
Were they on the management fast track?
No. Some of these people were buried inside an incredibly hierarchical organization that, all pointed at the top. That this place was run by a chairman's office. That's the tower, right?
Uh-huh.
And the chairman's office is the top floor. It's empty now. We use it as a tourist trap. We bring people up there.
Why did you leave?
Because nothing happens there. I'm on the floor here with all the engineers.
With the engineers?
Yeah. I can build the car with all the guys on this floor. That's all I care about.
How did they feel about you having
they love
on
it.
the floor?
The official view is that they love it.
He looks familiar to me.
For 60 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Doug Betts.
How you doing?
He's
Hey, Doug, how are you?
Whether they like it or not, everyone on the floor seems to have gotten used to his presence.
Sorry to barge in on you like this, but does he walk in all the time?
Occasionally, yeah.
So 300 in many ways is obviously the flagship of the Chrysler brand.
Mm-hmm. 42-year-old Ralph Giles is in charge of product design at Chrysler and one of the rare holdovers from the old regime. The Chrysler 300 and the Dodge Dart are his babies. He says the company has always had good talent, but a lack of resources and execution produced cheap interiors and poor fit and finish.
Everyone knew what was wrong with the cars. You ask any employee in the company, they could list 10 things that they would do better. And when you're given a chance to do those 10 things better, you end up with a product that exceeds the sum of its parts.
The company has also made strides in reshaping its image. Chrysler's dramatic imported from Detroit campaign with M&M was hugely successful.
It's halftime.
And this year's 2-minute, $8 million Super Bowl ad with Clint Eastwood, extolling the resiliency of America and its automobile industry, caused a major stir and briefly became part of the presidential campaign.
Republicans said that this was a campaign commercial for President Obama, a payback. Did you anticipate that criticism?
Just to rectify the record here, I paid back the loans at 19.7% interest. I don't think that I committed to do a commercial on top of that. I thought that the Republicans' reactions to this was unnecessary and out of place.
That's very restrained for you.
It is, I'm on camera. You put me here. You turn these things off, I'll give you my own assessment. This is the old boardroom of Fiat.
Marchioni splits his time between the Fiat headquarters in Turin, Italy, and Chrysler headquarters in Auburn Hills, Michigan. But he is fully engaged on both continents at all times.
I mean, when you're here, do you get calls? Do you have to deal with Fiat?
Yeah, that's why I get up at 3:30 in the morning, so I can deal with the European side and be fine here by the time I get in. I mean, the other thing that helps is our time zones.
When do you go to sleep?
10. I'm not really a late night guy. I used to be when I was younger.
Besides being CEO of Chrysler Group and Fiat Automotive, which has nearly 200,000 employees at 166 plants worldwide, Marchioni is also chairman of the Fiat Industrial Group, which makes heavy equipment, and SGS, the world's largest standards and instruments company, based in Geneva. He manages all of this with 5 different cell phones he totes around in his knapsack.
You got a lot of jobs.
I have some, yes.
Do you remember them all?
Yeah, but I don't get confused since I do them all, yes.
You and I have lived among workaholics in our day. I have never seen anything like Sergio. When it was a holiday in Italy, he'd come to America to work. When it's a holiday in America, he goes to Italy to work. Saturdays and Sundays were just work days to him and for his whole team, and anybody who signed up with Sergio signed up for the program.
Marchione does have passions besides work. He loves opera and jazz and very fast cars. In Turin, he showed us the high end of the Fiat automotive line, which includes Maserati and Ferrari.
These are great looking cars. Is there anything here for less than $500,000?
All of them.
All of them?
Yep.
Sergio owns a couple of these, but he has no opportunity to drive them. As head of Italy's largest industrial empire, his life is much different here. He's required by the government to travel in bulletproof cars with police escorts and is always surrounded by state security. Sergio seemed more than happy to take us to the old test track that still sits atop an old factory for a short spin in this limited edition Alfa Romeo, a legendary brand that he will reintroduce to the U.S. market in 2014. But even here, he was unable to escape his security detail.
It has a severe impact on your private life because you're always with them when you're there. It's part of life. It's part of what I do.
Do you have a private life?
Sure I do. And it's private. It's private.
What he likes to discuss is business, which is worse right now in Europe than in the U.S. What promises to be a serious recession is beginning to affect the economy there, and Fiat and other European car makers are struggling. But it should not affect the future of Chrysler.
Do you think they're out of the woods?
I think the question of whether Chrysler will survive or not is largely behind us. I think the question at this point is how big a market share can they have? How good can their products be?
There are plenty of new products in the pipeline. A brand new Viper will debut next month, and a high-end Maserati SUV built in Detroit will debut next year, along with a whole range of new models. With sales up 40% early this year, the company is projecting its best first quarter in 4 years. But Marchione, who is right now obsessed with quality, is taking nothing for granted.
What's the biggest challenge facing Chrysler right now?
That we're going to slip on execution. We're going to get something wrong. Big.
Like what?
We're going to screw up on a car. It won't sell. It's possible.
Can you afford that?
One car, yes. Now I can afford a car. 12 months ago, it would have been a disaster. But now I can take the pain. Not one car.